Okay, it is 3:03 and I will call the meeting to order. Mary, would you read the governor's remote policy?
Yes, good afternoon. This open meeting on August 1st of the Town Area Plan Work Group Subcommittee of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission is convening by video conference pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. This meeting is being recorded. Please be aware other people may be able to see you and take care not to share your device's screen. Please silence all phones and devices. We will feature public comment if any members of the public are in attendance. And Henry, do you want to go through the roll call?
I will. I'm here. Mary?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Mary Ann?
Here.
Mickey?
Here.
Allison has said she was going to be late. Reagan is no.
And Marcia is not here.
And Marcia is a no. Okay. So we have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. Any additions, admissions, changes?
So moved.
Okay.
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann. Okay. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we're good. Okay, approval of the draft minutes from July 21st, 2023. Any changes? Take that as a no. Motion to approve.
I move to approve Mary Ann.
Mary Ann
I'll second.
and Mary. Okay, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Okay. Has anybody got anything they'd like to discuss?
Henry, before we begin, I asked Mary Longacre whether the Zoom link will be good for all Tuesdays, and she said it would be. And so I'm bringing it up now simply so that I can put it into the minutes so that the link will be there for everybody to see for Tuesday meetings.
Right.
It is the same link for each of our Tuesday meetings until the end of the year. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I add it to my calendar, so.
Can I make a request? Can it also be added to the agenda, or is there a reason that it can't be?
Megan is on vacation. When she gets back, it will be.
She is back.
All right. Can't go on vacation again.
Yeah.
When
I
she's
think
there, it really is.
Yeah, originally we were having a new link for every meeting, and that made it more difficult to put on agendas. So now that I fixed it, it should be easy to do.
Nikki was very kind to sub.
For
Megan.
okay.
Okay. Mary and Lee, have you got anything? You had, if I can find my notes.
Yeah.
Circulation?
Yeah, we had not prepared anything to share. We have talked some, but
Okay.
Right. And Mary is absolutely right. However, let me report from Roads and Right of Way. Let me make a note to myself. Oh, gonna ring. 2, 3. There we go. Chair Bill Greeter keeps a so-called projects list, and he's asked Mike Burns, our, we can call him colloquially transportation planner, but his official title is manager of transportation programs. And Mike has willingly updated this projects list, which suggests not that we need to copy the list into our plan, although Mary, I'll send it to you in case it sparks anything. But it suggests that we've got a newly reactive, not reacting, but RE-active transportation program. And we should be seeing some things coming out of there that may actually preempt some of the things that we were talking about, and we, Mary and I, in terms of road improvements, traffic improvements, and so forth. So it may be useful, Mary, for us to participate in Mike's survey of the revised transportation or regional transportation plan. Please look and see what's in there.
Yeah, so the NPNEDC, through Mike Burns, the Transportation Program Manager, does currently have another survey out for the long-range transportation plan. Sorry, not a survey, a comment period. So there is a draft long-range transportation plan, which is being circulated through town channels and social media. And that invites comments. And then at the August 21st meeting, we will close the comment period for that plan. So there is quite a lot going on right now in transportation planning that absolutely Lee and I should be aware of as we work on our segment for the town area plan.
Now, apropos of nothing but traffic in the summertime on Nantucket, when I go sailing at Jetty's Beach, I use Gardner Road as a way around downtown, as do a lot of other knowledgeable people. And that brings up the fairly common response to our survey that of the various roads that really need improvement, Gardner Street is probably number one in terms of its width. And yet as I drive down it, I can't visualize what we would do differently from what exists. And that includes the suggested one-way scheme with New Lane being the other way back to Main Street. And I laid that out on a map. And I'm thinking, wow, there's some streets that would never, ever want the volume of traffic that would spill off Gardner Street. In any event, these are not discussed thoughts. They're just things that have been percolating.
I wonder if they thought of moving the Civil War monument.
Actually, they had thought of moving the monument in the center of Caton Circle, just moving the circle slightly to accommodate traffic, and that was met with fierce resistance. So I doubt that moving the Civil War monument would be any better received.
The pocket park where Macaulay's dry cleaners used to be would be a perfect spot for it. It's definitely a major hang-up this time of year.
Yeah, and about half the people that approach it do not realize that it's an obstruction in the roadway and not a rotary.
We'll have to point that out, Lisa. We'll get more publicity on that fact.
Well, some people treat it as a rotary and some people don't. That's
that was one of the intersections we identified as looking for suggestions for improvement. If anybody's curious, I can review those if you'd like me to, but and also wanted to remind everyone, I did send out a link a while ago where you can view the survey questions, not the answers, but the questions, in case you weren't sure when or how something was asked. That link, I can send it out again if anybody needs it. Or Lee, maybe we can just add it into the minutes as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Could I add my 2 cents about Gardner?
Sure.
I don't have a problem with the monuments. Yeah, traffic backs up, but I can sit in traffic. I have a real problem with Gardner because it really can't accommodate 2 cars going in different directions sometimes. And I find it dangerous. So in the summertime, I don't even do Gardner Street. I mean, I just take it off my list of options because I think it's dangerous, cars going in both directions at some points along Gardner. It's just not wide enough.
So I had a bad experience of having side rear view mirror snapped as I was going down Gardner because I got too close to the person coming the other way.
Yeah.
Now, here's the point. Here's the point. I was at the parts department at Don Allen Ford replacing the glass. And the clerk behind the counter said, oh, he said, I got a lot of business from people high-fiving on Gardner.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, getting the wires underground there would go a long way towards giving people a little extra space.
Mhm.
Because it's, you never think you're gonna hit the car coming the other way, but you're always afraid you're gonna hit the telephone pole at the edge.
Yeah, or the
There's
tree.
also a tree in the way. Can we put that underground?
Nantucket has something called an encroachment policy. That means that most of those little posts with horse heads on them are inappropriate, if not illegal. But the policy says if there is a legitimate obstruction in the sidewalk that would hinder strollers and bicycles, there should be a curb cut on either side, which is another rule that we observe by the omission much more than by the observance.
Lee, is that really a rule that's written on our bylaws?
Yeah, look up under, I think on the town's website, there's a page for regulations, and look up encroachment policy.
Because I've always thought that that would be a good thing to have enforced or enacted, because of up on Milk Street and also Gardner, I mean, there's a lot of those big elm trees completely block the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Pedestrians and of course disabled people have a very difficult time managing those areas.
Indeed, and Mickey, your time with the Commission on Disabilities, probably very sensitive to this.
Definitely.
So I looked up the survey results and as I said, the support for preserving the intersection as is was highest for Caton Circle at 35%. And next is the Civil War Monument at 34.85%. They are definitely the ones that the most people do not want to change.
That's good.
Now, also because I live close, I looked at the proposal for the one-way loop, Pleasant, Atlantic, Sparks, Williams. And, it makes a lot of sense. It's not nearly as onerous on the residents because these are all heavily trafficked streets.
Mhm.
And then I'm thinking about the big tractor trailers that come from the dump to take our non-compostable material off island. And I'm thinking, whoa, are these gonna go down Williams? Or I believe there was a proposal at one time for a rotary at what Mary calls, Mary, do you call it Six Corners? That would be Sparks, Surfside, Prospect, Atlantic, etc. And when asked, well, how will the trucks manage this rotary? Mike Burns's answer is, we're going to make it like the Sparks Avenue rotary. They'll drive right over the top of it. In other words, it'll be marked by pavement, but not by an obstruction.
Yeah, that remains to be seen what will happen there.
Oh, yeah.
Never got past concept stage. But since we're talking about them, the other intersections are Pleasant Street, York Street, Atlantic Avenue, so 5 corners, and Prospect Street, Quaker Road, Milk Street Extension. So that, that string of pearls sort of intersection. You could almost do a one-way loop using all 5 of those intersections. That would be interesting.
Mhm.
But again, roughly 30% on average didn't want them changed, which is a pretty strong contingent. It's a greater block than chose any other answer.
Right. A so-called plurality. Marcia.
Well, at one point they were talking about that section of Pleasant from Five Corners to whatever that is before the Boys Club, making that one way.
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about, Henry, using Williams as the loop. So Sparks would be two ways up to the point, and then you're looking at a large rotary of Williams Lane, a segment of Sparks, Atlantic Avenue, and a segment of Pleasant.
Yeah, I don't see that would be a great improvement.
No.
But we are doing sidewalk improvements. Eventually, there will be a sidewalk on that section of Pleasant Street. It's moving slowly, but I believe it is moving forward.
Priscilla, who said she wanted to be a granny with one of those wheeled shopping carts going down the sidewalk to the Stop and Shop. She said, by the time we get to the sidewalk, I'll be too old for that.
Did they get that piece of property? They've been negotiating for that for, I don't know how long.
Henry, I get various words, none of which is authoritative. It's 57 Pleasant Street, and it's owned by the Phelan family. And the word was that they were willing to negotiate with the town on some kind of sidewalk as an easement into their property so the trees would not be damaged. He's planted 4 more maples, and they're well outside the layout of the road. So it's the older maples, which in the wintertime look like they should be cut down, but right now look very healthy. They've been abused by storms, but they're growing very well. They're maples.
So would you put the sidewalk on the inside of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thought. I'm not even going to bother to put this in the minutes because it's just not authoritative.
Okay, Mickey, anything you want to talk about?
No, I'm working with Reagan on the on our segment. I forget even which one it is at the moment because it's been a while since I've looked at it. But I'm hoping to have that ready in the next within the next 2 or 3 meetings. I'll touch base with her and try to get that more organized.
One thing that I can add to the transportation segment, I started looking at the responses as, from seasonal residents versus from year-round residents for transportation questions. And I found there was no significant difference. Everybody feels the same way about traffic and parking.
I believe.
But if anybody has survey questions and they want to see that kind of a contrasting view, either seasonal year-round or the early respondents who got the postcard versus the later respondents who got the social media, I'm happy to pull that data out. Just let me know what you'd like to see.
Okay.
Also, I'm able to pull out at a street level. So everybody responded saying what street they lived on. So if you needed to get the responses from a particular street or number of streets, potentially I can pull that out too. So that I was thinking in terms of looking at the intersections to see if there was a disparity between people who lived near the intersection and people who didn't, if they had different feelings.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just have a question, Henry. Are we going to discuss the process and timeline for maybe drafts of each of our segments? Or I'm just kind of curious going forward, what has the town even given us a deadline for this, or can we take as long as we want?
Well, I can speak for the NPDC.
Okay.
We have not given a deadline, but there is definitely a feeling that we need to keep this moving and reach a conclusion sooner rather than later. There are other areas that would like to update their area plans, and the NPDC cannot accommodate more than 2 at a time. Right now we have 3. So we really need to wrap some stuff up and allow other groups to move forward as well.
Which are the 3 that are now in progress?
Mattakit area plan has an update, our plan, and the Monomoy area has a new plan proposed.
Oh,
So
aren't they the one, isn't Monomoy the one with the fancy plan?
Yes.
They're making it even fancier?
Maybe less fancy.
So, so Mary, what is the status of the island master plan update? Is that something that we can look at as a draft also?
That update will also be moving forward. We've had a conversation recently, looking at what plans have been completed that can feed into the master plan. And obviously, if the town area plan is able to pull a final or even a draft report together, that can be used as input for the master plan.
When I gave the report to Mary and company, I believe I said summer, Thanksgiving maybe,
Oh, wow.
the way we're going now.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's a lot more realistic
Yeah,
if we're lucky.
Right.
Yeah, I think the point is this is a homegrown initiative. It really needs to come from the members. And so, to a certain extent, NPDC is, on your time schedule rather than you being on ours.
Anybody else?
I guess I'm just wondering about the relationship between the work that we're doing and everyone else is doing, whether it's on the island-wide plan or the area plans, and how some of the current issues are very much affected. I mean, we're in a relationship with housing, where with all of the STR, I mean, it's really interesting to me. I mean, working with Mickey on the housing, that at the same time that we're doing that there's this enormous issue being discussed, I should say, right? And that's got to have an impact on the master plan itself and on our individual area plan as to what happens with STRs.
Right. The curse of planning is that there's always something happening that's important. And, the census data is a good example. Everybody believed at the beginning of 2020 that we would have the census data by the end of 2020. And then the pandemic intervened and the political process started messing with the census. And the census data still has not been released in full. And that's frustrating because you go along, and every couple of months you think, well, certainly it can only be another couple of months until you wait and you wait and you wait. And then it's 3 years later.
Right.
So at a certain amount, there's a certain amount of, looking at what else is going on, but you also still have to move forward. You can't wait years and years and years.
Right. And it seems like it then you're required to make some sort of statement somewhere about what the current issue is. I wonder if there's anything else besides the short-term rental issue that's that's affecting our area plan.
Yeah, affordable housing, and we've all talked about that. The changing real estate market, certainly, I mean, there are all kinds of things that have an impact. I just heard today that restaurants, boats, lodging, they're all saying that they are at lower levels this year than last year. Was that a trend or is that a blip? There's no way to know except to wait till next year.
It seems to me that in an introduction to our whole area plan, we would just note these things that are still in process or under development and could affect what we're recommending in some other way than we're recommending at the time. We should note all these things, but there's nothing we can do to change things move along all the time.
No, but I think we need, I would think that we would take some sort of a statement or stand, like in terms of housing and short-term rentals, and make a statement about how has that impacted our area for housing at this point. I don't know what you think about that, Mickey. I mean, because it has, correct? It's changed a few neighborhoods.
It has, I mean, it'd be interesting, I don't know if was that part of our questionnaire, how many of the downtown houses are being used as short-term rentals, because that's an important aspect of it.
Yes, so let me look at that.
Also, the work group has tons and tons of data on this that we could use.
Ah, that's a good point.
So generally speaking, on average, I'd say about 85% of the people who responded to our survey, so keep in mind there could be multiple people per property, had not rented out a room or an apartment or part of their house on any basis. So the primary use for the houses that belonged to the people that responded to our survey was single family residence, no rental.
Wow.
That doesn't surprise me too much. I don't think of downtown as being, I mean, obviously there's plenty there, I'm sure, but and we don't know about the ones that nobody answered, the survey regarding either. But I think most of the short-term rentals are going to be, out of town, Brant Point, South Shore, kind of less year-round.
My satirical response, Mickey, is it's because we banned pools downtown, and pools are one of the desiderata for rentals. That's why they don't want to come. Parking is the other.
Right. Yeah.
Let me provide the full results here because I don't want to mislead people. So the response choices were rented out a room in your home to a worker seasonally, rented out a room in your home to a worker year-round, rented out a separate apartment in your home to a worker seasonally, rented out a separate apartment in your home to a worker year-round, rented out a separate structure on your property to a worker seasonally, created a covenant home or lot from your property, created a market rate lot by subdividing your property. So generally speaking, the average of those was, somewhere around 85 to 90% no. We also asked rented out all or a portion of your property for short-term rentals. And the response there was over 50% no, with an additional 10% no, but would be considered, and another 10% yes, but not recently, the remaining 25% yes. So again, of the properties belonging to the people who responded to our survey about the town area, 25% in round numbers said yes, they do short-term rentals. And very few did any other kind of rental or affordable housing component.
What is the percentage of response rate on the, how many responses compared to how many homes in the?
Well, we don't know exactly because we counted responses on a per person basis and we sent invitations initially one per property, but then we opened it up through the town's social media channels. So we really don't know how to calculate a response rate, but we got roughly 400 responses and we counted roughly 1,800 properties. So something, let me do that quick math. something less than 22% of the properties are represented.
Wow. So there was a category, what an answer you could respond by saying, like myself, where you rent a bedroom for Airbnb.
Yes, so that would be rented out all or a portion of your property for rental periods less than 30 days.
Oh, all or a portion. Okay. All right. Yes, in my neighborhood, I can count at least 4 or 5, just within a stone's throw. So I'm in the 25% zone.
But the other interesting response was that more than half of the people for the follow-up question, if you would consider any of the options for rental use, what assistance would you need? And more than half said, I would not consider any
Yeah.
of the options. So I would still say that it's pretty clear that the primary use of properties in our town area is as single-family residences without a rental use.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. Wow. On another subject, I missed, I was late getting here to the meeting, but I'm wondering on the transportation or what category sidewalks come in, on which component include recommendations for sidewalks.
Let me get that for you.
That's the first question. And the second one was, I remember several years ago that there had been a group assembled to evaluate sidewalks in the downtown. And I think they were part of traffic and safety. I'm not sure, but I wonder if we have access to that because yeah, I think it's
Marcia, this is Lee Saperstein. I headed up the survey on sidewalks and it's on our website. DPW has a copy of it. Significantly, the town through the select board moved ahead of us and said, we will dedicate $1 million a year for the next 5 years. I think we're in year 3 or 4 for improving downtown sidewalks. The challenge that we foresaw was that there are a number of important sidewalks that link living areas to the downtown, and they're outside this particular funding initiative. I'm thinking of the sidewalk along Bathing Beach Road, for example, out to the jetties, or the sidewalk down from my house on Orange Street. And of course, there's been a fracas or fracas, depending on how you want to pronounce it, on the historic sidewalks on Main Street outside of the downtown.
wow.
There is a sidewalk improvement plan, and as Lee said, the town is allocating money every year and chipping away at it, if you will.
Wow, that's a good chunk, and it's good to know that. I guess one question I had, I was walking up from Galley Beach, going up Cobblestone Hill a couple of days ago. And this is a question that applies to Cobblestone Hill, but many other places where there is no sidewalk, but there is an edge. And you just wonder, well, who owns this property? Who could actually, could the town put a sidewalk? And when you're going up Cobblestone Hill, besides the cars coming up there and the bikes on the sidewalk, one side on the upper end is completely overgrown. And I think, wow, I'd love to know, is that town property? Could we actually have a sidewalk over there? So was that question addressed in that survey of sidewalks, Lee?
So let me give you the survey. So the question was, which of these actions are you in favor of to increase the accommodations made available for pedestrians? And the number one most positive response was repair uneven sidewalks. And number 4 was build new sidewalks where needed. And that was 74%. And then the first one, repairs, was 78%. were in favor of that. So you're right, Marcia, there's strong demand for better sidewalks. But just as an illustration, I'm on a private road, so there's nothing to do with the town. We recently had the road surveyed and found out that most of us are using the edges of the road as part of our private property without potentially being aware of it. For instance, there is a stone wall which is built technically in the roadway. But what it does is extend the yard of that property into the roadway. And you'd never know because the roadway wasn't laid out to use its full width. But there are similar situations across the island. I think Vesper Lane has a much wider footprint on paper than it does on asphalt.
Mary and Marcia, the distinction is between the paved width and the layout width. For our newer roads, it's relatively easy. The layout can be defined as you drive, for example, on the Matticat Road, by looking at where the power and utility poles are. They're outside the layout. And so typically there's a grassy shoulder between the paving and the edge of the layout. On our historic streets, it's not so clear because some of the historic streets, the paving and the layout are coincidental. Marcia, the town owns anything that's within the layout, and that usually includes sidewalks, which incidentally can lead to an interesting challenge if we have a thick snowfall, because we can't ask the citizens to clean up what is town property. And yet it's usually good manners to get the ice and snow off your sidewalk. But they do belong to the town.
I mean, it's also incredibly interesting when you see the number of historic houses that have their entire stepped entry on the sidewalk. I've always wondered about who owns it.
I think that's because there wasn't a sidewalk. It was simply a road, for carriages and pedestrians. I mean, it's really interesting when you start to look into how our use of the public ways changed when cars arrived.
Okay.
You didn't need a sidewalk previously.
Mary and Marcia, our so-called Nantucket friendship steps are an accommodation of the lack of width. Those are where you have two sets of stairs that rest against the house and lead up to the doorway.
Right.
The policy on encroachments recognizes that there may be historic encroachments that will be accepted by the town. We're not going to ask people to take away their front steps. And I'm pretty sure, I know we discussed this in Roads and Right of Way. I'm relatively certain that the encroachment policy accommodates historic encroachments.
And just to follow up on that survey question, there was also the response, should we widen sidewalks to meet ADA standards? And that was almost the least favorable. Only 28% said yes, 38% said no, and the remaining 33% had no opinion on that. So it's interesting that, again, Nantucket likes the way it looks, and doesn't want to make major changes.
Again, Mary, it's not, the challenge is not as awful as it might seem. We took tape measures. Most of the sidewalks in and around town are 4 feet wide. The problem, of course, comes when you try to get between a privet hedge and a utility pole. Many hedge is the encroachment.
Yeah, we probably could have worded that better. Instead of saying widen, we sort of said, provide a clear pathway to meet ADA standards.
It's 4 feet.
Okay. Well, some good news related to sidewalks I experienced last week on Huzzy Street when there was a policewoman on a bicycle and she stopped 2 bicyclists. She stopped one who was riding in the street, but the wrong direction. And she stopped them and made them walk the bike. And the other one was a person riding on the sidewalk, and she got them off of the sidewalk. I mean, I was amazed. And she told me that the beginning of her season this summer, that they had been instructed to give tickets to, I had never heard this one, to give tickets to cars that parked on the sidewalk if they left less than the width of a baby carriage. And they gave tickets that way, and then they had to back off. She didn't really say why, but they rescinded that and didn't follow through. I mean, I could only guess it could be because maybe nobody knew that rule about, because it means parking, getting out to assess the width that you've left and kind of reconfiguring. But that was news, that they had been instructed by the police to give tickets if you parked on the sidewalk.
It's Marcia, it's complicated at best. And several of us have seen Chief Pittman's response to roads and right-of-way about enforcing the Massachusetts ban on parking on sidewalks. And finally, the chief said, and I think this is what you're commenting on, without a clear resolution from the select board about how to enforce, they're just going to back away from it.
Yeah, I was just surprised that they at least started in this year with a certain clear intention and then did back off.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, let me ask a question, and this just came to mind. So this is by no means an official response request, but you know, we have area plans, and I'm wondering if, sort of similar to the way the HDC does, if standing committees who comment on issues relative to an area, like HDC has the Sconset Historic District Advisory and Mattocket or Tuckernuck, and you know, forgive me, Mickey, I'm not familiar with all of them, but you know, it might be an interesting exercise to shift away from a plan, which, you know, as Marcia pointed out, is difficult to adapt to changing circumstances, and more in favor of a standing committee, which might, you know, meet on a quarterly basis to discuss local issues and make recommendations to the planning commission in that respect. Just a thought. I mean, literally just occurred to me as we're talking here today. So I wonder if anybody has a reaction to that.
Mary, I would suggest that you take that up within NPEDC, because that's a major change to our instructions.
That's why I'm just asking for, you know, instant feedback here. As we've been talking about it, I'm just sort of wondering, I mean, obviously I need to take it to other more official channels, but this is informal right now.
I mean, I guess I could see, Mary, going both ways. I could see us continuing the work, and then, you know, those that might be so inclined to continue so that you'd stay on, since we all get so versed with these issues. Or, you know, could just be a separate appointment, you know, for such an advisory group. But I could see continuing and completing in the way that we've been requested, but then to keep on as that advisory group. I think it's a great idea.
Any other thoughts?
But does that mean that the document that we're supposed to be creating at the end of our tenure here becomes more like a living document that's actively being changed through this subcommittee, this group?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. You know, I'm also reflecting, you know, public comment is available to any citizen at any time. So there's certainly no prohibition on offering, you know, commentary on local issues. So I don't know, it's just a thought that occurred to me, as we were talking. I'm always looking for ways to be efficient and at the same time effective.
Yeah, I think it's effective, and I think it also potentially gives people, citizens, and gives them a different group of people that they may relate to easily, to provide regular feedback and say, oh no, we know to call Lee, or we know to call Henry, or and so I think that has a value, because I know it is the town civic league, and that is supposed to be the kind of the function for all of us as in the role and the town association. But I think this really makes it very specific, a good place to consult.
And that may be the answer, Marcia, simply to encourage the civic associations to be more vocal.
Yeah,
And not keep their opinions to themselves.
right. Yes, to be more proactive. Yes.
Mary, you don't think that updating the area plans every 5 years is enough?
No, I'm reflecting on the logistics from the NP and EDC point of view of having a dozen area plans competing for attention, and how difficult that is to say yes to more than two and say no to the others. But at the same time, we don't really have a better way to do it.
Yeah, I think I had no idea that there was that backup for the MPDC, with the different area plans. I had no idea that was happening.
I mean, it's a good thing. It's just a tremendous amount of work, and we don't have the resources to do it all at once. You look at the number of plans that the town has, and it's staggering. And yet I make no apology for having added the coastal resilience plan to that list. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it.
Anything else? Okay. I have 3:51. Our next meeting is August 18th at 4 p.m. Motion to adjourn. Mary?
Second.
Mary and Marcia. Okay. All in favor, aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye.